Hi Navyug, I'm so glad to have this opportunity. You've been a mentor, you've been sort of a guide, and what I've learned from you in the past 2 years, I came to your first Designing Your Life workshop 2 years ago in Delhi. But what I've learned from you has been very, very played a very critical role in my life. I am going to see this conversation as, an opportunity for me to learn from the Devile Guru. And I see myself as a bit of a philosophy nerd. I'm someone who's very deeply in love with philosophy. So I'm going to put some questions to you and, hope for your reflections on those.
Thank you, Devanshu, and thank you for the kind words. I'm looking forward to the conversation, looking forward to learn philosophy from you, and let's get started.
Okay, so before I dive deep into the actual philosophy, one personal question. I've always been something of an overthinker. And I think what I learned from you in Designing Your Life has helped me address that. But it'll help me to know in all of the hundreds of people whom you've coached and trained on the Designing Your Life framework, how do you think it is, in your experience, something that really addresses that problem for people, overthinking?
I would say that Designing Your Life, it stands on two pillars really. One is reflection and thinking, but the other important pillar is action. So people who jump into action, it's a great nudge for them to pause and reflect. And people who are overthinkers, Devile nudges them, and this is through a set of tools and exercises, reflections. The framework itself nudges you to do the opposite. And then having done that, to do both and to continuously in life have cycles of reflection and action, and the dance between reflection and action really is what we think, or I think, in my own personal lived experience, is what creates not only wisdom but also value.
Yeah, what you're saying, it's always been this experience. Whenever I've had a conversation with you, it always reminds me of something I've read in philosophy somewhere. Now, what you just said reminded me of this very motivational quote by the French philosopher Henri Bergson, who says, "Think like a man of action, act like a man of thought."
Lovely.
Yeah. So, this keeps happening. Whenever I've heard anything from you about Designing Your Life, this happens. So let me dive into some of the more substantive concerns I've had, because I have always been somebody who was obsessed with finding meaning and purpose in my life, and couldn't find any answers for quite a long time. But then as I approached midlife, I encountered existentialism, and I happened to read up on thinkers such as Sartre, Kierkegaard, and others, and they gave me some answers, some very, very lofty insights and realizations. But then I was still struggling, how do I take these insights, and can I have some method or some practical tool which can help me translate these into my day-to-day life? And this is what I was thinking when I sat in that workshop with you over those 2 days 2 years ago. So I want to ask you, Sartre talks about something which I felt really resonates in the Designing Your Life approach. He says that our existence precedes our essence, by which he means that there's no fixed purpose, no fixed meaning within us. It is up to us what meaning we create in our lives through our choices, through our actions. That's something which I felt resonated when I encountered Designing Your Life. So your thoughts on that?
I've thought about this often. Does essence come first, or is it through existence that we develop essence? I'm not sure I have a clear answer to it, because you can argue that your decisions that you made was nothing but an expression of your existence. And it's like the chicken and egg problem, right? I don't know if anyone's really solved it. You can have memes around it. But if I really did have to put a stake in the ground, I would say that actions, at least in my life, the choices I've made and the actions I've taken have been defining. They've allowed for me to be where I am and who I am. And of course, one can argue those choices were because of a underlying essence. I can argue that those actions and lived experiences is now my essence. So I don't know, but I guess it's again one of those interplay between the two.
Yeah, I love your answer, because again, with my exposure to philosophy, I know this is one of the oldest debates in philosophy. Is there an essence, or is it the essence that we create? And I mean, I will come back to Sartre, but I want to just briefly segue into Indian philosophy, which is also an area which I love. And there I found this correspondence with the Designing Your Life approach, where we talk about, and this conversation might sound a little, getting into the bit of the spiritual dimension at this point, but we talk about the three possible routes to that ultimate good, whatever it is, whether we call it salvation or liberation or enlightenment or whatever. But the three paths we talk about are the Gyan Marg, which is the path of knowledge, or the Bhakti Marg, which is the path of devotion, or the Karma Marg, the path of action. So for me, I thought that designing your life with its bias to action corresponds to the Karma Marg. And again, I would love to know, because what are your sort of reflections on that?
And I guess these are the three paths, right? And maybe there's a fourth. I'm not an expert, but for me, I'm a Karma Yogi. And one reason I guess Devanshu appealed to me also was it's the path of karma and action. So my personal, essence, if you may, is of being a Karma Yogi, and I think that is also of designing your life. And if you take a step back, that's what designers do. They are building, they are doing. That's the role of design. And in the actions of doing and building is progress and value creation and growth. And for a human, it might be salvation or liberation, as you called it. For a designer, it might be a great product or a great service. We evolve when products and services evolve. So the essence of design, I think, is more than knowledge. And of course, you need knowledge and wisdom and reflection or love. Of course, you need love in anything you do. But the essence of design is ultimately the essence is in creating and doing and evolving by doing the same. So
I remember when I was attending your workshop, and I've attended a couple of others as well with you. There are these references that you've dropped sometimes, and you've not really gone into detail there when you say that, there is this spiritual aspect as well, but you've not sort of expanded on that. So I'm very glad to hear you say, I'm a Karma Yogi, and that's a bold declaration that you're making. I'd love to hear you just reflect upon that. In what way, Navyug, of course we know you, but for our listeners, how have you been a Karma Yogi in your life?
I don't know. Maybe I've overstated this, but I'll just simplify or state it simply. I think I'm a huge believer of doing. And I think we have purpose, we have duty, we have role, we have a goal. And for me, meaning comes from pursuing the goal, being alive to the purpose, and being very cognizant of my role. I'm a huge believer of that as well. And I personally believe that value gets created and you get a sense of happiness through doing, which is not to say that I don't see value in the other two or other three routes or paths to feeling whatever, call it liberation, call it happiness or fulfillment. And one does that too, and one needs to do that, and none of us are singularly one. I think all of us do all of a bit. It's just the essence, as you said. Is the essence more around the doing, or is the essence more around the gyan or the clarity and the understanding of the world? To me, the clarity comes through doing. Having said that, once again, I'm saying that does not mean none of us don't do the other things. It's just your essence.
Yeah, these are not watertight divisions, obviously.
They're not, and we are all a mix of all this. No one's in a bucket or in a silo.
So there's a lot, there's a lot sort of coming out of your answer. But again, staying with the Karma Yogi sort of approach that you take in your life, one other sort of correspondence I found between Indian philosophy and the designing your life approach was that the Bhagavad Gita says that when you are performing your karma, perform it with non-attachment to the results.
Right.
And what I found very interesting in the designing your life approach was that, don't get fixated on a particular outcome. It's more about the iteration, the experimentation, the prototyping. So can you speak to that a little bit, and you think there's a resonance there?
I'm not sure DYL explicitly calls out a lack of attachment. I think that's valuable. However, I wouldn't say that that's explicitly in there. What DYL calls out is, well, at some level, and just like what you said, is iteration. And we can iterate to the end goal and be attached to the end goal or not be attached to the end goal.
Right.
Gita says don't be attached to the end goal. DYL doesn't comment on that, according to me. According to me, its comment is around the path to the end goal, which is through the path of iteration.
Right. So it's a fascinating framework because it just calls to mind all these references from across the world of philosophy, Western and Indian. I'll just come back to Sartre again because with all this sort of emphasis in the designing your life approach on multiplicity of futures that are possible and multiple personalities, there was something that I found very striking is Sartre, he talks about something called bad faith. And by that he means when we tend to over-identify with any particular social role or position that we occupy. And I was remembering it when there was an exercise we did during your workshop, which was we had to reflect on the social identities we carry. And then I was thinking about it later. I thought, okay, so what I'm taking away from this workshop is that one is so much more. There are so many more possibilities. One is so much more than these roles. So was there some sort of, what was the purpose behind including that activity about making us reflect upon the social roles we occupy?
So there are two pieces to this. One are the social roles and the social identities, and then there are the multiple futures. So I'll kind of talk about both. Yes, we have multiple identities. All of us do. One thing that we talk about is not to over-index on a particular identity. It's like you do. It's just good, de-risking in some sense, in a very worldly sense. As a portfolio, you don't put all your money in one stock. You have a portfolio because it's risky to have. Similarly, it's risky to have that one dominant identity. Having said that, I also believe that one must have one dominant identity. All right, let me explain, because I know a lot of people will say that no, it's risky, just you should have multiple.
Right.
But I also think you get a lot of fulfillment when there is one. But what happens is then we only stay with one and the other ones are completely excluded. So I think, yes, you must have one at a stage and age in life, which will evolve, identities evolve. You must also have other identities. But if everything is equal, I would argue that that's a little bit of a problem. So now identities evolve, some of the smaller ones will grow over time, etc., etc. So that's about identity. And identity gets formed through the stories we hear, the stories we've born up with, our lived experiences, what's calling us out, our passions, the effort we are putting behind the passions. Identities develop, identities evolve, identities change. We can have multiple identities, multiple roles. In my own personal experience, I think I've had multiple along the way, but at each stage there has been one which is a little larger than the others, where I can then apply focus and effort and get fulfillment by going a little deeper, a little further. So I believe that. And at some point it could be career, at some point it could be something else, right? The second part of what you alluded to was, possibilities and multiple futures. And because we have multiple identities, talents, passions, values, dreams, aspirations, perhaps, and that's what we ask people in the program and in the coaching and everywhere else, that might there be more lives within you? Are there more lives? So my personal anecdote is that, we all have 5 dramatic Hindi movies or Bollywood blockbusters inside us. If I had to talk about your life and all your experiences, Devanshu, I could make 5 films. It's just a number, but I'm just saying that we all have 5 3-hour films that are already inside us. And the question is, do you want to talk about those, or do you want to also envision the 6th one? That's still something that you'd like to do. So in DYL, we ask ourselves, might there be possible futures, possible odysseys as we call them, and adventures on the way forward? And have you ever paused and reflected to think about what that possible future might be, which might be very exciting? And we want to ultimately live a life that's exciting and fulfilling and full of change and full of challenge and full of newness and full of novelty and full of growth. And if we keep doing the same thing and our other things lay bedded, which happens to a lot of people in the world, then when you're later half in your life, you either say, oh, how did I get here, and not so happy, or you're reasonably happy, but there are many other things that you never tried and regrets and you never did them. So we're just throwing this open as a designer would. Let's think about possible futures. That doesn't mean you have to chuck this and start that tomorrow, but let's put the seed in there.
So I don't think Sartre would at all sort of disagree with anything that you've said there, because he's very much about making your choices. So when it comes to having a dominant identity, so long as it's we intentionally exercising a choice as to which one of our identities is the dominant
one. And Devanshu, sometimes we are intentional, but we over-index on one. We give it so much importance to the exclusion of other things that A, the other things suffer, and B, if this is taken away. So if some person intentionally focused on that job, it's intentional, and they are all in.
Yeah.
And one fine day that job's taken away from them, or that role is taken away from them, there's a lot of grief then. So I would say that yes, it must be intentional, but there also must be a reflection for the fullness of our being, which basically means the other pieces. And what if one identity was taken away? Would we be miserable, or would we be okay? And then build from there.
Right. So you touched upon the Odyssey planning exercise that is part of the training, and again, I'm sort of going to frame this coming from the Sartre point of view. Sartre used to get very, very upset when he used to get enraged when people used to say that, oh yes, I could do that, but I don't have enough money to do it.
Okay.
And I remember that one of the exercises we did was to carry out this thought experiment of thinking, what would be the future if money was not a constraint, or if there were no other constraints?
Right.
So I felt that designing your life takes that insight but translates it into something very practical and doable. So what is the role of thinking about how our life would be like if there were no constraints, and how practical is that?
Yeah, so again, 2 pieces to this. So what you're talking about is that the thought experiment we did where we said there are no constraints. And that's an interesting experiment to do, to see that what would we be doing if we weren't afraid? What would we be doing if status wasn't an issue? What would we be doing if money wasn't an issue, or resources, or age, or whatever? And that informs us and gives us insight. But I'm going to take a step back, Devanshu. We also did something called reframing limiting beliefs. So money is a constraint, is a limiting belief.
Right.
So even before we look at the future, an unconstrained future, which was a thought experiment, I want to bring it down to here and now and say how many of these constraints are actually limiting you, and can we reframe them so that we can start that today rather than put it as a thought experiment, which is a fantasy of no constraints. But I think that's nice, and now let's bring it to here and now, see what's the limiting belief. So I don't have enough money is a limiting belief.
Yeah.
And to reframe. And in my own personal life and experiences, I think it's worked for me. I started and I didn't want to ask my dad. I'd come back from US, I got started, I had no capital. And then social narratives, and I got married and I jumped into marriage, right? And now I have no money and well, I'm married and a business and no money. And you'll be glad to know, but many years later, it's been a wonderful journey. It's been also financially very rewarding, but it started with, okay, what are the resources that I have around me? And I saw that I had brought a laser printer from USA, because in those days we had dot matrix printers, and I sold my laser printer then for the market rate, less whatever, Apple Laser Writer 2 for 98,700 rupees. And so guess what? I got some money, but it was not enough to build a business still. But money wasn't a constraint, because I also feel that, problem solving or ideas can get you past this constraint of not enough money. There are various ways to get resources and to get money into the equation. Mm-hmm. So it's a limiting belief.
Right. That was a very powerful exercise on reframing limiting beliefs, and I know it's something that is always popular with people who take the workshop. So I've talked a lot about Sartre, but I want to touch upon another thinker whom I've also found very influential, and that is the 19th century Danish thinker Søren Kierkegaard. And again, I felt that there were certain resonances in the designing your life approach.
Okay.
He talks about what he calls despair.
Mm-hmm.
And he says there are two kinds of despair that we face. So the first kind, and both of these are very familiar to anyone who's associated with designing your life. He says the first kind is when you're stuck and you don't know what options you have, how to move forward. And the other kind, he says, is when you have too many options and you're so overwhelmed and paralyzed by those.
Nice.
And this is something which I know comes up very often in the Designing Your Life workshops. So
nice.
I guess my question to you is that his solution was that you can't really know, what any possible future can entail. You've got to take a leap of faith.
Lovely.
And I know leap of faith is also an expression that you hear quite often from participants. What's your response to that? Is a leap required or is something else needed?
Okay, so lovely. So two kinds of despair.
Yeah.
One was when you, just repeat the
when you're stuck.
When you're stuck and there are not enough options.
Yes.
And the other is when there are too many options.
Yeah.
So this is lovely from a Devanshu perspective. As designers, the whole act of design and creative problem solving is, I'm talking of despair one, is to generate options. So as designers, and given all the tools and given that stance or mindset, and with creative problem solving and with the belief that you can generate lots of options, and that would mitigate despair one.
Okay.
And that's classic DYL stuff for designing your life and the designer's mindset.
Sure.
The second despair is also classic design and speaks to the designer's mindset. I'm glad you brought this up, and thank you for getting Kierkegaard in, and I didn't know about the two despairs. But the second is when you have too many choices. And that's something we really do talk about, and not from a philosophical lens, but the design lens, and the way to move forward rather than get frozen because of the number of choices we have, is to prototype, which means it's not a leap of faith. We're saying try stuff, do stuff to learn, to see if this is a right choice. So it's not a leap of faith, it's a leap of action.
Right.
And through action we learn something, and we'll test some of these choices and not feel overwhelmed or in despair.
One thing that I note about your answer and which I like is that I've talked so much about these correspondences between what these thinkers have to say and what we learn in designing your life, but there are differences also. So I'm glad that you pointed out that a big leap is not what we are advocating.
Yes.
And also I would say that something else which I would like you to comment on is these thinkers sometimes there's a lot of insight, but the tone can be very foreboding and it can be very dark sometimes.
Yeah.
Whereas that's not the mood, tone of designing your life.
On the contrary.
Yeah.
On the contrary.
Yeah. So, I do remember the word joy comes up quite a lot.
Well, yes. It does in the sense that, designing your life and the whole approach is not, okay, this is a journey towards joy or a journey towards happiness. And what we're saying is, and it's not dark at all. It's actually, I believe and my favorite movie is Life is Beautiful. And I think DYL or designing your life and the approach there is, it's not life is beautiful, but there are multiple paths and we have agency and we have the tools towards a life of fulfillment, flourishing and resilience. And it's not just joy or happiness. It's fulfillment, flourishing and happiness. And science of human motivation and human behavior and Martin Seligman and all have talked and said that humans are actually after resilience, happiness and flourishing, so to speak. And then on the way, of course, you also get your joy and happiness and things like that. So, our approach is be generative, get rid of things that keep you stuck, know what your values are so you're motivated, get curious, try stuff, learn from it, and continue to build your way forward being in coherence with who you are. And that's our general approach. And yes, the world is what it is. I can argue that it's a horrible world with a lot of cruelty and lots of, misery. And I can argue that it's a beautiful, wonderful world with a lot of possibility. And as designers, we're just saying that can we build our way forward and create more value no matter where you're at. Even if you think the world's not great, you can feel less unhappy by taking some actions. Even if you think you're in a great shape, in a great world, in a great place, you can be happier and you can build your way forward to a delta X greater amount of that goodness. So it's just an approach to move forward, irrespective of how happy or fulfilled you feel, irrespective of how miserable you are. Can we move our way forward for a little more of what will motivate us and create flourishing and happiness?
I think, as always, Navyug, very inspiring ideas from you. One could go on all day but I think a good way to round off what we've discussed and what you've just said, I think I'll quote the Stoic philosopher Epictetus, who said that it is not events that disturb me, but my judgments about them.
Yeah.
So this thought that I may have got the words slightly wrong in the quote, but that's the general idea.
Yeah, it's so true, right?
Yeah.
It's how the lens through which we see things.
Yeah. So thank you, Navyug. It's been great.
Thank you, Devanshu, for it's always wonderful speaking to you and learning philosophy. I look forward to this continued dialogue, and also thank you for being part of the whole mission, if I may, of bringing designing your life to a larger number of people. This whole journey gets so enriched when people like you, who come with so much of wisdom and thought, try something. It's DYL stuff, right? You tried this.
True.
And got curious about it and found some value, and now we're kind of moving forward with with a greater sense of. So thanks for that, for all your inputs and thoughts. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Navyug. It's
All
been
right.
wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.